Hi, I'm Whitney Reed, and I'm going to do a demonstration of how to sew a button on your shirt. I chose this topic because all of us have probably had buttons pop off, and as adults, we're in the business of saving as much money as we can wherever we can. So I wanted to demonstrate something that is a useful skill that we all can, as adults, can use again and save ourselves a little bit of money for those of us that don't know how to do it. In order to get us started, I want to run through the list of materials that you'll need, and it's a very short list, pretty easy, starting with the article of clothing that you would like to mend. This is just an old white t-shirt that I'm not wearing anymore. Just want to use it for the demonstration purposes of this video. You're going to want to grab a pair of scissors, a spool of thread. I'm choosing pink just so that it stands out against the stark white t-shirt that I'm going to be using it on for the demonstration purposes. But you obviously want to make sure that your spool of thread matches the article of clothing that you're going to mend. You're going to want to make sure you have a needle. This is going to be key. And if you look at it closely, this needle has an eye in it, and this is the type of needle that you'll use or you'll need to use in order to help mend the article of clothing. And last but not least, you will also need a button. I'm using a 2-hole button just for, again, demonstration purposes. It's a little bit quicker and easier to navigate with. Standard buttons that come on our clothes typically have 4 holes in them, and you can use that as well. Same process, just a couple extra holes. But again, just for the sake of time, I'm going to use the 2-hole buttons. Once you've gathered all of your materials, you're ready to get started. Now, the first thing you want to do is take the spool of thread and begin to unravel it. You want to take out enough. What I typically do as a rule of thumb, I put a little bit in the palm of my hand, unravel it all the way down to the length of about my elbow, I'll say. And you don't have to take out that much because it is sewing on a button, and buttons are small, and the area of the shirt that you're going to mend is probably very small. But I do that just because when I was learning how to do this initially, I made a lot of mistakes, and this just keeps me from having to, for losing my strand of thread, and just gives me a little bit more room to play with in case I make a mistake. So just about an arm's length, your forearm. Once you have the thread measured by eye, you can then cut it with the scissors off of the spool of thread. Then I would advise that you fold that single thread in half to make it a double thread. And this is just going to help to secure that button in place a little bit tighter, so it'll be stronger as a double entity. You just want to smooth it together to make sure that it's joined, to make it easier to fit through the eye of the needle. Now typically, as you can see here, I've smoothed it. I try to wet it. Maybe just put it at the tip of your mouth just to wet it. You can also dip it in water if that makes you feel better. But once you have it kind of as a single piece, now folded, you're going to want to grab your needle. You're going to attempt to put this folded thread into the eye of the needle. And you're going to want to do it with the part that's folded that makes kind of like a loop. You want to stick that in, not the one that's frayed. It's going to be a little harder to get the ends inside of the eye of the needle versus just using the one that's bent and the one that you smooth. So I'm going to attempt to do that. It will take a little bit of time for a beginner, so don't try not to get frustrated if it takes you a few minutes, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, because you have to be very delicate, seeing as how the eye of the needle is very small and the thread that you're trying to put it through is a little bit bigger. Just keep smoothing it out and then stick it right through the eye of that needle until you pull that needle through about halfway in the middle of your folded piece of yarn, or excuse me, your folded piece of thread. Once you've done that, you're just going to turn your thread upside down so the needle is dangling, and you're going to tie those loose ends together in a knot. I typically just wrap it around my finger into a knot. You can also just hold both ends together and tie them like you would tie a shoelace. But just make sure that knot is secure, maybe double knot it. Then you're ready to begin sewing the button on. That is our next step. You're going to want to grab the article of clothing you're using and pick up your button and place it on the garment wherever you want it to go. And I typically just hold it with one of my fingers, maybe the middle finger. Just hold it on between my middle and thumb fingers on the fabric. Then you're going to want to grab your needle and you're going to hold the base where the eye is, but you're going to want to use the sharp point, obviously, to pull through the fabric in order to sew. So in order to begin the sewing process, you're going to take the sharp end and you want to pull it through the inside of the fabric. The inside is the one that you wear closest to your skin. So you're going to pull it through the inside of the fabric into the first hole and pull it all the way out into the front of the fabric so that it's facing away from you. You're going to then wind the needle back through the untouched hole all the way back through the inside of the fabric and pull it nice and tight. So now, as you can see, it loops between both of the holes. Then if you turn it inside out, you can see the knot that was started as well as the needle being pulled through the other side. So it's facing the inside of the fabric. You're going to want to repeat that process 2 or 3 times just for the security of the fabric. For the sake of time, again, I'm going to just wind it through once more. And I'm going to start by inserting the needle again from the point that I started with the knot on the inside of the fabric. So again, here's the inside. I'm going to put the needle in where I started at the knot on the inside and pull it through the front of the fabric away from myself. And then I'm going to wind it back through that second hole so that it points back inside of the fabric towards me. Once I've done that securely, I'm going to do one more pull through. So I'll take the needle and I will point it towards the initial hole with the first knot. But instead of bringing it all the way through the front of the fabric, this time I'm going to stick the needle out the side. So if I tip the button and the piece of fabric, I want to pull it through but not into the hole. I want to pull it through right under the button to pull it out of the fabric so that when you look at it from a side view, it juts out. So I've brought it through the inside, up underneath the button, and pulled it out so it juts out of the side, or looks like it's coming out of the side of the button. It's really underneath. This is going to allow us to wind the needle and thread around the button at least twice to help it to secure so that it doesn't come off of the fabric again. Once I've wound it twice, I'm going to take that needle, stick it right back underneath the button into the inside of the fabric so that it comes back to face me. So it's facing myself. Then I'm going to pull it right through. And then if I show you, again, you see the thread going weaving in and out of those 2 buttonholes. And I also had to make sure it came out of the front underneath the button, wrapped it around twice, and then stuck it back where it came from so that it was facing the inside of the fabric. The last step is to make a double knot on the inside of the fabric. So that's just going to close up that loophole or that threaded hole so that the button doesn't come loose. I do that just by taking my needle and sticking it in somewhere inside of this piece of the knot. I'm not sticking it anywhere back into the fabric, just finding a loose place in the knot where I can pull it through to make its own sort of knot. Another option, in case that does confuse you, it's a little harder to see because the knot is so small, you can just, again, wind it around your finger really closely to the button, pull the needle through, tighten it all the way to the base of the button, just so it knots all the way up. As you can see now, it's one kind of gigantic knot. Then you're ready to take your scissors, cut at the base, toward the base of the knot, not anywhere on the knot. And your button is now securely fastened. I hope this tutorial helps you guys to be able to use this down the road in case you have an accident where your button falls off your shirt, your pants, or whatever article of clothing that you wear and adore. Thank you so much for your time, and have a great rest of your day.